الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be continuing discussing the book Al-Mukhtasar Sahih by Zubayr rahimahullah. And we'll be picking up or continuing from where we had stopped in the last lesson. And from what we can recall, that we're discussing the hadith of Ammar regarding carrying of the bricks in building the masjid.
Hadith.
Ta'awun fi bina al-masjid. That was the last hadith we discussed.
Ta'awun, Sahih.
Hey, so let's pick up on a few points on those hadith. So that hadith that was mentioned regarding concerning, I just want to read the hadith again.
طيب. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 42, to cooperate in building a mosque. Hadith number 281, narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, that one day he preached and then mentioned about the construction of a mosque and said, "We are carrying one abode at a time, while Ammar was carrying two." The Prophet ﷺ saw him and started removing the dust from his body and said, May Allah be merciful to Ammar. A rebellious group will kill him. He will be inviting them to paradise and they will be inviting him to hellfire. Ammar said, I seek refuge with Allah from al-fitan, trials and tribulations.
Yes, that's the hadith that we had stopped when we are in the last lesson. So we started discussing that hadith. And of the benefit that we discussed concerning with this hadith, that the author, rahimahullah, that he mentioned, ta'awun fi bina al-masjid, where he put as the heading of this hadith, that is mentioned of the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, that relates to ta'awun, that the Muslim cooperating in building a masjid. So we start discussing this hadith, that it shows regarding that the masjid was being built, that when during this the masjid being built, that it discussed the masjid being built, that Ammar radiallahu anhu, that everyone was taking one like brick, but Ammar was taking two bricks, one brick on his own behalf and the other on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. So Ammar was carrying two bricks. So from the hadith they mentioned regarding that in a individual who's able, that in matters concerning ta'awun, of doing of good and ihsan, that a person can push them, the person can put more effort. So that the person who's able can put more effort in carrying out and doing of good, then this is something which is highly recommended. Also from the hadith, it shows the fadl, it shows the virtue of building a masjid. So from the hadith, it shows the virtue of building a masjid, and that a Muslim are able to participate in building a masjid, then it is something which is highly recommended to be done, and also it comes with great benefit and reward. So it showed that Ammar ibn Yasir, that was involved in this process, and he was literally physically involved in taking of bricks. So it shows regarding concern of building of a masjid, that the person each maybe in their own ability, each according to their ability, that there are those at times may financially can contribute, those who maybe physically can help in the construction of the masjid. So each according to their ability, And also it shows regarding that from the hadith, that maintenance of a masjid. So if the masjid is built, then also of what is expected, that the masjid to be maintained, properly. Then also it shows regarding concerning that this, as they mentioned, ta'awun, that was doing collectively. So it shows regarding concern was a collective project regarding others were involved, and to the extent where each was carrying, as I mentioned, كُنَّا نَحْمِلْ labana, that they mentioned that we, mean concerning collectively those who were involved, that they were carrying concerning each one brick. As for Ammar, he mentioned وَأَمَّارَ as for لَبْنَتَيْن. As for Ammar ibn Yasir, he was carrying two bricks in this project. So it shows regarding concern those noble project, that building masajid when they are needed. So building masajid as needs regarding concern. So building masajid because that there's a need, and also it will serve the purpose of the masjid. Also the Prophet ﷺ, they mentioned from the hadith, that they mentioned Wake Ammar taqtulahu fiyatun baghiya, that also of the things that the Prophet ﷺ, that he mentioned, that mentioned the Prophet that also saw Ammar, what he was doing, that also he was removing from him some dust. So showing a removing of dust from Ammar, but because of that he was physically carrying concerning brick. So the Prophet ﷺ was dusting those things off him. Then I mentioned the Prophet ﷺ that he says, Wayha, Ammar, then he can somewhat mention something to Ammar regarding events that will take place in the future. So this shows concerning that alamat al-nubuwah, so signs of prophethood with the Prophet ﷺ, that he was able to foretold Ammar of things that will occur in the future regarding himself in particular. So they mentioned taqtuluhu, we mentioned that that Ammar, that he would be killed by fiyatin baghiya. So they mentioned regarding concerning that at certain stage, at certain time, amongst that a certain time that Ammar, that he was involved in concern that a dispute that occurred between a Muslim. So a separation or dispute occurred between a Muslim. We find that Ammar was with Ali ibn Abi Talib, being the Khalifa of the Muslim, and then you have those who were in Sham, and there were some matters to be rectified. It led to skirmish between the Muslim. So during that time, you find that of those who they mentioned that with the Prophet mentioned that he mentioned regarding yad'uhum ila Jannah, concerning that Ammar would be inviting them to Jannah, regarding concerning asbab al-Jannah. So inviting others to the ways of Jannah. And of the ways of Jannah, they mentioned that in this particular incident that occurred, that Ammar, that he was inviting concerning those who were amongst, they said that the Khawarij, so not the Sahaba. So Ammar was trying to, with the permission of Ali, that for him to discuss certain matters with those who, that with some of the Muslims then, and those ones were said to, those who referred to, eventually referred to as the Khawarij, whom they were in the midst of the Muslim, and also some with Ali ibn Abi Talib, but eventually they kind of somewhat, they went there because of the idea that they created problem between the Muslim and led to fighting and bloodshed between the Muslim. So the Khawarij were the people that he was trying to address and to call them to back to being obedient to Ali ibn Abi Talib, to be with the Imam of the Muslim, and not to break away and to rebel and create problems and fight between the Muslim, internal fight between the Muslim. So he was trying to bring them back by way of to disarm yourselves, leave away some of your ideas and come back to the lead of the Muslim. But they persist and they went their path until it led to the death of Ammar ibn Yasir Rata'ala anhu. So I mentioned that وَيَدْعُونَهُ, where they will also invite them ila an-nar. So I said that those that are in reference is the Khawarij. So in reference here is regarding Khawarij, that they mentioned وَيَقُولَ Ammar, then Ammar anhu, when he urged mention أعوذ بالله من الفتن, أعوذ بالله من الفتن. So it shows regarding concern the Muslim that to try to avoid things of al-fitan. So regarding concern, especially regarding those fitan, regarding change, regarding that division between the Muslim, then that's something a person try to be away from this. Also, so that type of division and split between the Muslim, also going against the leader of the Muslim, then a person try to avoid these type of fitna. So these type of fitna, al-kubra, that a Muslim he tries to avoid them, and also fitna regarding people may entertain ideas that oppose Islam in the name of Islam. So of those fitna is opposed that a person to avoid those who may take on ideas that contradict Islam in the name of Islam, such as the Khawarij. So they mention regarding concern of the fitna, that a person try to remove himself from fitna that leads to the split of the Muslim, and the split or division of the Muslim. It starts regarding concerning things of belief, and also it can lead to other things, and also can lead to death and internal fighting. So it shows regarding the Muslim that avoiding fitan that may occur between the Muslim. Then also it shows regarding concerning that the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw Ammar doing what he was doing regarding carrying off those bricks, that he wanted to do ihsan. So the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat that did what he did to Ammar, and also he said some words to Ammar. So kind of somewhat to Ammar, he did certain things, which is removing of things that was on him, and also he gave him certain advice. He gave Ammar certain advice regarding things that will happen. And also he showed the Prophet ﷺ regarding this kind of that when the people were involved, that he was involved with those people. regarding concerning the building of the masjid, that the Prophet ﷺ was involved with the construction of the masjid, the building of the masjid. And as we mentioned, that the hadith concerning A'lam and Nabuwa, that also from the hadith, you should the Prophet ﷺ being informing of things that will occur in the future, indicating that you find that division will occur between the Muslim, and to the extent where it will lead to the death of some of the Muslim. And that's sometime of the reality. So the Prophet ﷺ have foretold, informed us regarding concerning Muslims splitting into different over 70 something groups and sects. So these things will occur. So that's the reality, not that Islam, that we encourage it, but it's a reality that will occur. And we can see the fruits of this division. We can see the fruits of the division. And also overall, it shows concerning this hadith the virtue of Ammar ibn Yasir. It shows the virtue of Ammar ibn Yasir regarding concern that his effort in building the masjid, and also regarding trying to arbitrate between the Muslim. So it shows regarding that Ammar ibn Yasir, and also call the people back to the haqq, that Ammar ibn Yasir. So they show the virtue of this person and his effort. So that's concerning the hadith that we started discussing last week. So also from the hadith, it shows regarding concern that, as mentioned, regarding concern the group, that regarding concern the Muslim, when we fall into division, that is not per se something which is overall praiseworthy and to be encouraged. So splitting, division between the Muslim is not something that one should aim and try to be a part of this, but to clarify the truth and falsehood, then it's the obligation upon all of us. So for the Muslim to clarify the truth and to stick by the truth, and to be upon the truth, and also to clarify those things which is batil, and also to avoid those things that are batil or people upon batil, then also this is upon us to preserve our deen. So the mention regarding, so said that the groups that were involved or started, or those groups that emerged during that time, of them the Khawarij and others. So of those early groups that emerged amongst the Muslim, the Khawarij, and as the ulama mentioned regarding concern that these groups that deviate, or said they are the problem. Any group that have deviated from the correct path, then they are the problem. And for them to come back to the haqq. So of those things that I find that they are consistent and common with most of these deviated groups of past and also of present. Amongst them the Khawarij and the likes, that you'll find regarding that one, we mentioned three things that are or said that one, Sul Fahm al-Deen. They have a misunderstanding of the deen. So you find most of these groups that are deviated of those things that are common with them, a misunderstanding of the deen. And this, so you find a misunderstanding, and also qusur fil fahm, that they have somewhat a very narrow understanding of the deen. And this leads to their deviation. And others who are with them. So first, qusur wa su al-fahm lid-deen. Second, that also with those groups that define it now, that these groups concerned that these groups can be darr al-Islam wal-Muslimin, that they can be also a threat to the Muslim and to Islam. They become a problem for the Muslim and for Islam. So the Muslim, as well as the Muslim regarding concerning, they see the Muslim different from them. They see other Muslim different from them and treat them different. And create a separation between the Muslim, and also dar al-Islam, that they start to misrepresent Islam, and people start to perceive Islam in a wrong way based upon their behavior and actions and the likes. Then the third of those things concerning tasarruf al-hukm, that they're very quick in passing ruling on others, al-akharin. So they're very quick in passing judgment, ruling on others, especially more so those that are not with them. Those who are with them, they are full wala. Even if they be the worst of people, they'll cover for them. But those who are not with them, that regardless of how much piety that person may possess, if you're not with them, you are seen as someone on the other side. So you find with them concerning passing judgment and people regarding amongst those groups, you find that it's very widespread, and amongst them and their followers and those with them, that they are quick in passing judgment on others who they see as not being with them or agreeing with them regarding at-takfir, take them outside the fold of Islam without hujjah wal Quran. So takfir without clear evidence and proof. Second, tabdiyah. They are quick in passing judgment and others regarding the people are not from the sunnah and have left the sunnah. And the sunnah mean concerning as they see the sunnah. As they see the sunnah, you are not in line with the way that we see the sunnah. So they kind of they quick in passing judgment on others and making judgment regarding at-tabdiyah. And there's regarding tafsiq. That if you're in that, to say others, there seem to be al-fusaq and the likes. So they can so they are very quick in passing judgment on others. So that's concerning of those things regarding al-bidah wal-ahwa. In every time, in every generation and time, that you find these common traits are with them. That so su'ul fahm, misunderstanding of Islam. Second, they become a threat to Islam and to the Muslim because of their misrepresentation of Islam. And also that they're quick in passing judgment on others who are not with them. Others who are not with them. So you find that, so that's of those things that are common between the people of Al-Bidah wal-Ahwa. So that's concerning of the hadith that have been mentioned regarding Ammar ibn Yasir radiyallahu anhu. And also shows regarding that the Muslim that he avoid people of Al-Ahwa wal-Bidah. That the Muslim that he tries to avoid the people of Ahwa, the people of desires, and the people of Bidah that have been mentioned and spoken by the ulama, al-kibar. أيوة.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله Chapter 44. While passing through a mosque, one had better hold one's arrowheads.
Man bana masjidan.
Naam. Chapter 43. The superiority of whoever builds a mosque. Hadith number 282, narrated by Ubaydullah al-Khulayni. I heard Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu saying, when a people argued too much about his intention to reconstruct the mosque of Allah, the mosque of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned, when people argued too much about his intention to reconstruct the mosque of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you have talked too much. I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, whoever built a mosque with the intention of seeking Allah's pleasure, Allah will build for him a similar place in Jannah, paradise.
Yes, that's the next chapter they discussed by the author rahimahullah. So still discussing matter regarding al-masjid. So the author rahimahullah still mentioned a hadith from Sahih Al-Bukhari that the original author Imam Bukhari rahimahullah in his Muqtasar of Zabid rahimahullah mentioned a hadith regarding masjid and thing that relates to this topic. So he mentioned regarding concerning of the virtue of building a masjid. So of the virtue of building a masjid, so he mentioned man bana masjidan, that one who builds a masjid. So regarding concerning what are the virtue of the one who's involved in building a masjid. And building the masjid regarding concern that's not either person that so we have the hadith that is mentioned to explain the virtue of the person who builds a masjid and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that person with for building a masjid. So it shows one regarding the hadith he mentioned and Uthman ibn Affan that ta'ala anhu where he mentioned in the قول الناس فيه إن بنى مسجد رسول الله السلام قال إنكم أكثرتم, where it mentioned that this case regarding that Uthman ibn Affan, he was then the Khalifa, as we had discussed a few hadiths before, as mentioned that a few hadiths before that the masjid, the Prophet al-Islam masjid was expanded from what the Prophet al-Islam initially built. So the masjid was expanded. We find that Abu Bakr left it as it was, and then Omar, Uthman, that they expanded the masjid. So they mentioned regarding concern during the time of Uthman ibn Affan and his expansion, which is much more greater than those who preceded him, that the people kind of somewhat start to have a discussion regarding this. So regarding concern that of the expansion of Uthman, people now start to have a discussion regarding this, somewhat of their objection or disapproval regarding this expansion of the masjid by Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu, where he was, so this expansion was under some discussion by some. Then Uthman ibn Affan, being then who said the Khalifa of the Muslim, that then he want now to address the matter and to clarify the matter and also bring evidence regarding what is allowed. فقال فإني سمعت رسول الله السلام يقول. Then he mentioned, I heard, kind of somewhat to, then he mentioned first, إنكم أكثرتم, that your people are quick in making criticism, that you're people that you're quick in making of criticism. So it shows regarding concern that that Uthman have come to hear of what was being said. So it showed that also the person who's the leader, that to kind of somewhat have a means where to listen to said what is being said by the community at times, whether for or against. So to have an idea what is being said, what's being discussed. So Uthman Uthman became aware of what was being said by some regarding the expansion and the work that he was involved regarding the Prophet ﷺ masjid. فَقَالَ مَنْ بَنَى masjid, and we mentioned that he heard the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, "Man bana masjidan," the one who builds a masjid. And it shows regarding يَبْتَغِي بِهِ وَجْهِ اللَّهِ. So he mentioned that Uthman ibn Affan, kind of somewhat to clarify regarding what he's doing is something that of justification. He mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet ﷺ encouraged regarding building of masjid. Man bana masjid, and so one who builds any masjid, or build, that also include in the case of Uthman that he was not building a new building. So the person wants to take the initiative to build a completely new masjid, then also that falls into the person bana, building a masjid, or a person who wished to expand a masjid. So in this case of Uthman, he was what? Not building a new masjid, but rather he was expanding the masjid. Then he mentioned conditions. So anyone who's involved in this process of building a masjid, that he mentioned يَبْتَغِي بِهِ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ, and the person seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala face. That's the so you have building a masjid for anyone who's able, but when doing so, the person must have the right intention. As the ulama that mentioned regarding concern Ibn Lakin regarding the shows regarding the ikhlas, regarding concern that this act of building a masjid, that those who are involved in doing so, whether so in any way the person building of a masjid, then the person should have ikhlas in doing so. So whatever contribution that a person gives in building a masjid, it should be done it should be done with al-ikhlas. So they mentioned that so the person يَبْتَغِي بِهِ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ, where he's seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's face from this. So they show that this is very important, that in any act of ibadah that one is doing, it should have ikhlas, and this would include building a masjid. So they mentioned that Ibn Malakin rahimahullah, that when he mentioned of this hadith, he mentioned that you have this hadith of Uthman will come, and it has different riwayat. But he mentioned certain one that he mentioned regarding of those narration, which is said to be not authentic. He mentioned where the Prophet some mentioned of other narration, "Man bana lillah masjidan yadhkur fihi ismullah banahu Allahu lahu baytan fil jannah." So you have that meaning, but he said those hadith that you have those hadith can somewhat give that same meaning of the person building a masjid for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I mentioned that in some narration mentioned لا يريد به رياء ولا سمعة, where the person also doing so he does not want, but he mentioned that riwayat is that da'ifa, that the person that doing so wanting to be seen, notoriety, or he wants to be get any form of attention. So the person who builds a masjid, not doing so to and not doing so where he wants, he said, out of showing off, and also not doing so because he wants some form of attention. I was saying, so this is important in regarding building a masjid. We find that many may want to build a masjid, but and I mentioned by their action, sometimes their action and their behavior, it can diminish and show that there's other things involved. So they mentioned regarding a person build a masjid and not wanting the masjid to be named after him. He doesn't want build a masjid and he doesn't want the masjid to be named after him. He leaves it to them. Not wanting his name to be mentioned or assigned to be there. He's the one who built the masjid. So the person will assign a plaque, and it mentioned the name of the person who built the masjid. Then he doesn't want this, and this instead, those are a sign of Adam al-Ikhlas. Or you might find that the person of the masjid, and they build a masjid, and they want to have a grand opening, and they say, no, we build a masjid, and I'm the one who's involved. Why you need to mention all of this? So yes, you may be involved, but you don't need to tell the entire dunya that I was involved and I had this project and we have this idea. Then that's not, you understand, those are signs of Adam al-Ikhlas. That a person is not sincere. So the person will build with sincerity when a person builds a masjid and no one knows, not even sometimes his family knows, his close friends. Because it's done fi sabilillah, liwajhillah. So the less the person publicize and let other people know, then that's more of sign of ikhlas. The more it is publicized and the person is inform others in whatever way, then this shows off maybe Adam al-Ikhlas. Adam al-Ikhlas. The more a person wants everyone to know that they were involved or she was involved, then that's sometimes a sign of Adam al-Ikhlas. And after you might find that of the things that of sometimes a person might build a masjid considered overseas, in a different place. And because I build a masjid, I have to be the head trustee of the masjid. But the masjid is the next country. You don't live in the country. You're barely attached to the masjid. But you want to have full influence in the masjid. More so over the people, the locals who are the ones who are the main attendees of the masjid. So it shows regarding concerning to know that at times these can be signs of Adam al-Ikhlas. Regarding concerning what those who may build a masjid and they want these things that come along with it. Also with that hadith, so that concerns the hadith and the meaning that is mentioned, that of the benefit regarding, so it mentions that the act, the person having that intention and making that effort in building a masjid, that is something which is noble, in building a masjid or involved in building a masjid, but also the person must have ikhlas, sincerity in doing so. And third, that the person then will hope for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant for him a bayt in Jannah. So not everyone believes because I built the masjid and automatically have a bayt in Jannah. That's not the case. So because the person, so not for us to think, because I was involved or I built a masjid, automatically have a bayt in Jannah. That's not the case. Because the person may not have ikhlas. So if there was no ikhlas, then you get no bayt in Jannah. I said no, the more we keep it private, then that may be a sign of more of ikhlas. The more we publicize our involvement in whatever form or ways unnecessarily, then that may be a sign of Adam al-Ikhlas. Fallah musta'an. That's concerned from the hadith. The second aspect of this hadith that I mentioned. And they mention of the second matter regarding this hadith, that addition to this hadith, regarding concerning this hadith, that is referred to concerning as Shaykh Abdul Aziz Al-Raj Hafidullah, he mentioned this hadith of those hadith that are few, that not many, that are said to be are classed as hadith mutawatir. So this hadith of Uthman bin Affan, Man bana lillahi masjidan, that is considered to be one of those hadith that are classed, that's referred to now as hadith mutawatir. So this division of hadith regarding concern of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that when he, in his book Nukhbat al-Fikr, that he can somewhat which discuss concerning ulum al-hadith and become now the practice regarding that they divide hadith into by way of how the turuq, by way of the chain of narrators, how many narrators are in the chain, that they divide into hadith into different categories, into two general categories, hadith mutawatir wal hadith al-ahad. With me? So in broad categorization of hadith regarding when a hadith reaches us, the hadith by way of the isnad, the chain, the narrators, then it would have a certain amount of narrators in each level that will decide whether the hadith is said to be classed as a hadith mutawatir, that have many narrators in all the levels. So you have a large number of narrators, or many in each level of the hadith, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, and we find that a limited amount that is called ahad. Of this categorization, that of the early ones who included in ilm al-hadith. So in the books of hadith, Rama Hurmuzi and others who wrote in ilm al-hadith, that they did not include, and others did not include or divide hadith into hadith ahad wal mutawatir. Huh? Ahad. A. That's what I'm saying? A. So, ahad. طيب. So, Khatib al-Baghdadi is the first one who made the distinction or mentioned it, but it wasn't mentioned before. And they mentioned that so it become a thing that became a general practice in the books of hadith. So we find concerns. So that up until today, that's the normal classification. But I mentioned that this matter came into the science of Islam from the people who are the Mu'tazila. This division of ahadith into this category was the work of the people who are the Mu'tazila. And the Mu'tazila are people who kind of somewhat, they have their own, a sect that are said to be deviant, where they kind of somewhat, they have their own division where they use a lot of intellect, and also they reject a hadith. They reject hadith, especially considered as a hadith. They said, in matters of aqidah, you only use a hadith that are mutawatir regarding matters of aqidah, and also some matters of fiqh. As those hadith that they feed yaqeen, ilm al-yaqini. As for hadith al-ahad, they feed ilm al-dhann, which is yaqeen, certainty. You are somewhat certain. A hadith ahad, they said these hadith that they are dhanni, they are hadith that are not doubtful. They are not fully certain. So they said, based upon this, a hadith mutawatir is to be used in matters concerning aqidah. As for a hadith ahad, no, because you have doubt about it, according to them. Even the hadith is authentic. So they said, so whether hadith is authentic, so a hadith ahad that are authentic, the fact that it is of few narrators, we not accept, because they said a hadith ahad yufid ilm al-dhann. It's you are still in some type of shak, according to them. You have some type of doubt. So they say you can't use the hadith. You cannot use the hadith regarding matter of aqidah, because aqidah requires for it to be a hujjah, to be an authority, it has to be something of certainty. Your aqidah can only be upon certainty. So they said, if a certainty for them is not whether the hadith is authentic, but not mutawatir, then they will dismiss it. Allah. So you find a lot of matters, they kind of somewhat, in matters, so they kind of first use it in the bab of asma wa sifat. They first use it, so they can have that categorization to this ahadith regarding matters of al-asma wa sifat and matters regarding al-akhirah. So that's how this came into being. And of those people they mentioned that was involved in this, that they mentioned a person called, the first of those to make that classification, a person that his name is Isa ibn Abban Sadaqa Qadi, yani they say Hanafi, he is Hanafi. But yani he died 221 Al-Hijri. He's the first person who came with this idea, and he was a Mu'tazili. He's from the Mu'tazila. So Isa ibn Abban, of those who kind of somewhat started the discussion regarding a hadith to be classified into three categories, and he kind of somewhat start this process. And he kind of somewhat picked on become, I said, but they use it then to dismiss a hadith that we said in matters of aqidah, because they had issues regarding al-asma wa sifat. Then it was developed later on up until today. So you find today the same mentality is with some regarding dismissing a hadith. They call them Quraniyun, according to what they mentioned to them or what they refer to us. But you find a new trend, some on watch. I don't listen to them at all, but you have one from the States, a few of them from Canada, from the States. They'll dismiss a hadith. One, watch if those who may watch him, I do not encourage that you listen to them. But his one is a Khan. Is a Khan. This one, Al-Khan, is about Quran. Is about everything about Quran. But I think you hear him speak about hadith. Because in reality, these people are not about hadith. So they will say anything regarding matter of Islam, they said, if it is not in the Quran, then they'll have a problem with it. So they'll dismiss concern and said, music is not haram. Where in the Quran music is discussed? And they also, the next thing will be in the Quran, where in the Quran you find Aqidah is mentioned. And they kind of somewhat, they have that pattern. To dismiss things, they will say, where in the Quran you find this matter? Specifically. And not everything, as we know, not everything is mentioned in the Quran specifically. But they'll use this as their way to dismiss things from the Sunnah. Because in reality, and you come to understand, in reality, I'm more inclined towards that these people are rejected of the Sunnah. But they don't want to come out openly and say it. Especially concerned, so they are rejected of the Sunnah, either rejected of the Sunnah, they're in complete rejection, and that's kufr. To reject the Quran completely is kufr, such as we said the people refer to the Quraniyun, and you have the one which is the rejectors of the Sunnah juz'i, in some areas. And you have that trend among some of the popular ones online, that their Quran, that their Sunnah rejectors, either in complete or in part. Either fully or in part. Where they don't see the Quran as that type of authority. If something is not clearly mentioned in the Quran, then they start to dismiss the Sunnah. And they're out there. And so I said, some of these big ones, online, that the way their pattern is that they have issues with the Quran, with the Sunnah. We find that their lecture, they really talk about the Sunnah. And when Sunnah is put in front of them, if it doesn't go in line with their principles, with their way of thought, then they reject it. And you see different thing as it comes up, you will see them take that route of rejecting the Sunnah. So he said, no, you have those people that are out there. So he said, it's a process that started over 1200 years back of rejecting the Sunnah. And this classifying the Sunnah so as to reject the Sunnah. So they're using this classification, mutawatir wa hadith al-ahad, as a way to reject the Sunnah. As for Ahl Sunnah, the Ahl Sunnah regarding any hadith that is authentic, that fulfill the criteria of authenticity, is accepted regarding matters of Aqidah. It's a proof, it's an authority, in matters of Aqidah or in matters of fiqh. In any matter. Any hadith that is authentic, it is a proof, is an authority on any matter of Islam. Without any distinction regarding Aqidah and Ahkam, or vice versa. But Ahl-Ahwa wal Bidah, they'll make this distinction. They'll make this distinction and hide behind, is it in the Quran? They're going to hide behind, is it mentioned in the Quran? As I mentioned, مَا أَتَاكُمْ رَسُولٌ فَخُذُوهُ. What the Prophet ﷺ have given to you, take it. And I have given to you as Sunnah. So I said, no, that's of the thing to be mindful regarding of a trend between some that they reject the Sunnah in whatever way and form, but just so the thing is to be mindful of them, to be mindful of that trend, especially concerning some of those who are online. Aywa. So it says now overall, that was said this thing regarding the Sunnah, that and also that Uthman ibn Affan, that when that issue arises regarding some people and somewhat having their disapproval or that discussion regarding him expanding the masjid, then he addressed the matter and also he gave his dalil. Also it shows regarding that in matters with the people having difference, that not just my opinion and our opinion, bring your dalil. So to yarbat an-nas, so as to, you understand, to bring back the people to the Quran, to the Sunnah. So I think somewhat to settle dispute is the Quran, the Sunnah. The thing to settle dispute is somewhat bringing the people back to the evidence on the matter that is mentioned in the Quran, the Sunnah. So that's the thing that we use concerning that to break the difference between the people, bring the people back and directing the people back to the Quran and to the Sunnah in matters where people dispute. So that's concerning of those things that can be mentioned regarding this matter.
Sorry, Omar. You see, in the Hadith, when it's specifically speaking about the people who were doing a lot of talking to Uthman, is this indicating the people who were upon Dalala, or is just this?
There's a discussion. There's a discussion of people, kind of somewhat. Can you find out in the time of the Sahaba that anything that was somewhat new, you always understand people were somewhat very cautious on certain things. So anything that was new, people were somewhat cautious. So they kind of somewhat have a discussion, then the matter will be clarified and they just take things forward. So that discussion opened regarding that matter. Aywa.
طيب. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 44. While passing through the mosque.
Before we go to the next point regarding concern man banallah, that concern that they mentioned regarding concern that not building of this regarding that a person who do so of the masjid with his own wealth, or his own efforts. So the person concerned in the building of masjid, the person that the person will be rewarded as such, the person with his own effort. So either said physically the person was involved in building the masjid with his own effort, or the person with his own wealth. But we said it no, and it mentioned the reward, the person will be rewarded with Jannah, and also son of a sadaqah jariyah. Also, everyone that benefit from that masjid, you get a reward from this. So not just for you, but also it serves as a sadaqah jariyah, where it's a continuous sadaqah. I was saying now with this matter regarding a sadaqah jariyah, that is on the person's own effort. Not that we find today, that are by some. A person die, then we collect, then we ask people to donate. That donation going to use to build a masjid on behalf of the person who have died and had nothing to do. He didn't have that even idea of building a masjid. The person who had died had no idea that they are made known that they want to build a masjid. But then others want to do something on his behalf, sometimes because the person he has shortcomings in his deen, and they want to get somewhat to
elevate,
to boost. So let's boost up his action, because the action can allow and bear calculation. So let's build a masjid, build a well. You understand? Those things are not known from the Salaf. It's the person's own effort. The person's own effort. So not also to ask you to donate to build something for a person who already passed on. Then that should not be done. Wabillahi tawfiq. Naam, Sheikh.
No, I'm not giving the lecture. What was there?
Yeah, we'll stop. Because the other hadith they are attached.
Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So that inshallah will end Sunnat Adhan. We said Isa ibn Aban, not Aban ibn Isa. Which one we said? Okay. So inshallah we'll continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq.